Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this product school webinar on a 2021 guide to product strategy. My name is Lucia, and today I'll be presenting this guide to product strategy. But prior to going into the details, I'll give you a bit of context about myself, as I always think it's nice to understand who you're speaking to or who you're listening to effectively. So, in terms of this, I studied business and then specialized in finance in Spain and Australia, where I graduated first of my class, which then gave me quite a solid grounding to start off my career. So I started off my career in strategy and in PwC as a strategy consultant, which gave me quite a strong basis of frameworks to uncover and solve wide-ranging problems that to this day is useful for me as a product manager. And from there, I then transitioned to Qubit, a SaaS company where I worked with companies in a wide array of industries. So companies of the likes of Superdry in retail or NH Hotels in the travel industry are examples of companies whom I worked with. From there, I then moved on to Lovecrafts, which is a social marketplace for crafts. And there, as a product manager, I initially worked in problems concerning revenue and conversion, and eventually worked on problems concerning search and discoverability and the launch of an app. After Lovecrafts, I transitioned to Letgo, where I worked as a trust and safety product manager. And most recently, I am working in Shopify as a product manager as well. And in all of this, I think my innate curiosity for experiencing and gaining a deeper understanding of different cultures has also driven me to not only work in different companies, but also live and work in different countries. So I've worked in the US, in Slovenia, in Australia, in Spain, and the UK. And the reason why I say all of this is definitely not to give myself a pat in the back and try and soothe my ego, but it's more to exemplify the fact that to be a product manager, you can have quite a diverse background. In fact, I think it's the exposure to different problems and areas of expertise. So whether you're an engineer, a designer, or even a strategy consultant, all of these things are what truly add value to your skill set as a product manager and make you a better product manager. So with this, I think we're good to start. So my objective for you today is for you to go away from this webinar knowing three main things. The first one, what a product strategy is. The second one, why a product strategy is important. And the third one, how to go about creating a product strategy. So in terms of what a product strategy is, let me say that the reason why I chose this particular product is because, after all, product strategy is the very core of product management. So in this way, creating a product strategy and its subsequent roadmap that comes after that is something that, as a product manager, you should consider a product in of itself. So it's a product that you're building. So in this sense, when you're developing the product strategy, you need to, first of all, develop research to ensure that you're accounting for all of the information needed to make a smart decision. So effectively, you need to include inputs from across the organization to create a good product strategy. You'll also need to be developing processes and designing how you interconnect and align people, taking into account the organization's culture. And lastly, you'll also have to plan the product launch. So in the launch, what I'm saying is that you'll need to think about what the best format is for communicating with your audience, which in this case is going to be your stakeholders. So in some companies, this might take the form of a presentation. In other companies, it might take form of a document. In other companies, it might take form in meetings. This is something that you'll have to assess yourself, taking into account the culture that your company has and the most effective way of communicating with your stakeholders. So with all of this in mind, strategy is quite a broad term. I think it exists basically at every level, everything you can imagine. So you have business strategies, sales strategy, you can have a discovery strategy, a go-to-market strategy. I mean, the list goes on. So you might be asking yourselves what this product strategy actually is. And in terms of this, my simple definition is that a product strategy is a system that defines what you want to achieve. It provides context around the market dynamics you're working in, and it also determines the main opportunity areas you will dive into. So, drawing from the ultimate vision of the product strategy is going to highlight the journey towards your destination. So, your product strategy is going to be the overall approach and the rationale for that approach. So in that sense, a good product strategy will be the basis of your product roadmap. And with all of this, a product strategy will answer one question: how do we make the product vision a reality? And with this in mind, it's worth remembering what a product strategy is not. So a product strategy is definitely not an output backlog. It's not a laundry list of activities. It's not a roadmap, and it's not what sales needs to close a deal. So with all of this in mind, it's quite common to be in a company that doesn't get the product strategy right at the beginning, which is where you can come in to make things right. So many companies can have a goal. So for instance, increasing revenue, and they'll probably have a product roadmap. So the tactics to achieve this increase in revenue, but they will not have a product strategy to be found. And this does not by no way mean that the product strategy is not important. So why is the product strategy important? Effectively, the product strategy helps you connect dots across the organization. So once a company reaches a certain size, there's going to be a lot of crossover and dependencies. So to make sure that the organization works efficiently, you need to ensure you're putting enough brainpower behind what is effectively the most important thing in order to achieve the company's objectives. So the product strategy is going to allow you to bring focus. It's also going to eliminate wasted effort. It's going to help you prioritize and provide clarity to your team. And of course, it's going to ensure alignment across the company. So in this sense, the product strategy and in the foundation of any strategy is knowing what the dream is all about. But once everyone is aligned on that, everyone needs to know what is going to happen in the upcoming future. So with this, when you're connecting the dots and creating this product strategy, support will need to know what is going to get fixed, or if there's a new feature that will require more headcount. In addition to this, sales needs to know what product they will sell and will need to sell that product. Marketing will need to market the product, and finance will need to build financial plans according to the company's future. So effectively, the product strategy, and if you're building a good product strategy, you're going to be inspiring collaboration. So you're going to be creating the partnerships across the organization that build long-term success. So in all of this, as a product manager, you'll be saying no to people more often than not. So with this, bringing people in on the strategy will make the process of saying no a whole lot easier. So if sales comes with a request, it's way easier to say no if they understand what you and your team are trying to achieve. In fact, more often than not, conversations with these team members will improve because effectively they will stop coming with requests that have nothing to do with what you're trying to achieve, and will in fact come with very valuable inputs that you will definitely want to consider. So we know what a product strategy is and why it is important. So how do we actually go about creating one? First of all, let me caveat one thing. Creating a product strategy is hard. Creating the product strategy requires making tough decisions. It requires lots of thinking. It requires effort. So what I'm going to go through is effectively the main ingredients you need to set yourself up for success. And in doing so, the first ingredient you will need is a clear vision. So the vision is your high-level, ultimate view of where the company or business line is going. And this represents the core essence of your product, its values, and what makes you unique. And these values, unlike a roadmap, should not change. So they are the grounding upon which your company should be built. So the vision is effectively your passion, your purpose. And the product vision will be defining your view of the future. So it's going to be what we call now a lot of time, your North Star that fits within the broader mission, and it illustrates the impact that the product will have on the world. And this vision is going to be in a way that is phrased as a simple statement that is very compelling and easy to understand, and it captures the product's purpose. And in all of this, the product vision is where you will be aiming towards, and it should be what is then driving all the downstream roadmap, strategic, and tactical decisions. For this, a well-articulated vision is going to be easy to understand. It's going to be catchy, so it'll capture people's attention, and it's going to be something that you aspire to achieve, an aspirational guide. So with this, we have the vision. We know where we're going. We now need the second main ingredient, which is to fully grasp the relevant market context. In other words, you need to identify the market problems you would like to solve. And this includes understanding the behaviors of your target market. It also includes understanding the competitive landscape, and it includes identifying how you will differentiate yourself. So you will need to deeply understand the market as a whole. You will need to understand your competition. You will need to understand your customers and what your customers need in order to build a product that delights them. So as you can see in the slide here, you will gain an understanding of many factors, such as how the company has performed. You will develop a competitive analysis. You will develop a customer behavior analysis. So going into surveys, looking for feedback, NPS, churn reports, and any other sources of information. Effectively, you must deeply understand your users. So you have to understand the people you are building your product for. And once you understand your target audience and their pain points, then it's when you can define the problems at hand. So it's with all of this information that you can then identify the main problems to solve. And to help you understand the market dynamics and core problems you should be solving, I would recommend involving the team and stakeholders as early and as much as you can. So this normally takes place both asynchronously and synchronously. So in this way, for instance, you can involve stakeholders with asynchronous communication through forms to fill out. So forms to fill out information that you send through to different teams, forms with requests that you might have. And in addition to this asynchronous communication, it can also be through ideation and brainstorming sessions with the different stakeholders you think you should be involving. And in all of this, as a pro tip, if you're currently working remotely, as many of us are at the moment, I would recommend taking advantage of the wide array of tools that we have for ideation at the moment. So tools of the likes of Miro, Metro, Retro, Figma, Asana, to make the sessions as productive as possible. And I think with all of this, if you involve stakeholders early on, as I was saying previously, you will ensure more alignment and will save time going around basically as a headless chicken trying to find more information and answers. And after you organize these sessions and after you collect all of the information, you should have a much better idea on what objectives you should be focusing on based on these main problems to solve. So once you understand what the core problems are, you can then begin to describe what you want to achieve as a team. And to do this, it's worth bearing in mind that you'll have to be willing to make quite tough choices on what's really important. So, in terms of this, in this third main ingredient, which are the objectives, these objectives are going to be the opportunity you're going to want to focus on, and it's going to give this general direction. And in terms of this, the objectives should be framed in a way that clearly demonstrates your intent. In other words, an objective shouldn't be to launch a certain feature in the next few months. The goal should be what you really want to achieve. So it should answer the question, what am I looking to improve? Or what do I want to achieve? And in this way, a goal can be something like, I want to increase revenue by 10%, or I want to increase the customer satisfaction score by 5%. Nothing like I just want to launch a certain feature. And finally, once we know what that third ingredient is, once we know what the objective is, we will then need the final ingredient, which is the key results. So we will need measurable outcomes and indicators to keep an eye on. In terms of this, the key results I would suggest should be outcomes and not activities. So if the key results, or as we sometimes call them, KRs, include words like consult or help or analyze or participate, they're effectively describing activities. Instead, you should consider the impact of these activities. And in addition to this, the KRs should definitely not be a checklist. They should not be a master task list of all the things the team should work on in a quarter. Because if a team treats the strategy and the KRs of the strategy as a shared to-do list, it's going to be very prescriptive on what the team should do, rather than giving your focus to what the team should actually achieve and wants to achieve. So you should use your objectives and key results to define the impact that the team wants to see, and then let your roadmap be the method of achieving the impact. So the roadmap is going to be a much more flexible mechanism that you can shift around, taking into account what you're seeing in the key results. And one final recommendation I would add about key results is that you should make sure that you can measure your key results. So I have seen far too many times teams define key results that were not measured accurately. So basically, we were not able to see whether as a team we were moving in the right direction or not. So essentially, prior to starting the roadmap, you should make sure that you can actually see these key results in a dashboard or have access to these metrics, so that you can see how the team is performing and whether you have to pivot with the roadmap or not. And going a bit meta, I'm going to give a little example of how the product strategy of creating a product strategy would look like. So as we saw, the product strategy has 4 main ingredients. If we were creating the product strategy of a product strategy, in terms of our vision might look like something like, our vision is to enable anyone, anywhere to create a successful product strategy. In terms of the market context and insights on the core problems, we would go in depth analyzing stakeholder problems and all of the communication issues companies and stakeholder have. So this would be quite a chunky part of the document. In this case, in the example I'm giving here, we're saying today, out of the box, product strategies no longer account for the complex needs of product managers. This has led to a certain loss in XYZ, and going here into quite depth as to what the problem actually is and that market context. Then for that third ingredient, the objective, taking into account all of this market context, we have defined that our objective is to double team efficiency in companies. And in terms of the key results, for this example, what we're saying is that we want to decrease team frustrations due to lack of effective communication, as reported by a certain survey. As I was saying, key to have that survey at hand. And we also want to increase employee NPS by a certain amount of basis points, 2020 or 2021. So to summarize all of this, a product strategy has 4 main ingredients. First of all, the vision. Second ingredient will be your market context and the insights on the core problems. Your third ingredient will be your objectives, and the final ingredient will be your key results. With this, you should then be ready to start working on a roadmap with your team. And in this way, the roadmap is going to be an expression of how you deliver this product strategy. And to wrap up, I would like to highlight that it is impossible to make perfect strategic plans given how uncertain the future is, and especially now, taking into account recent times. But the product strategy will allow you to map out effectively a valuable guideline so that you know if you're getting closer to where you want to be. And with this, I hope you enjoyed this webinar. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out via LinkedIn, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you very much.